Here I am directly behind the east stand of Newcastle United St James's Park, and right behind me there's a little strip of land where the wooden pallets are that's used for parking. Privately owned land, doesn't belong to Newcastle United, about 5 metres deep by about 15 metres wide. Now, it is alleged that the owner of that particular land is deliberately antagonising Newcastle United by putting obstacles on that land very recently, in effect holding them to ransom, because if Newcastle United want to expand St James's Park, they might need that bit of land. So the owner is holding out for quite a bit of cash. Some say around about 10 million. I must say that's alleged at the moment. So I've been doing some investigation, some research into what's been going on, into the ownership of the land, is it connected to St James's Terrace, and about what all this is about. I guarantee you're going to learn quite a bit in this video. It's coming up. Welcome back, it's Eddie here from Tinside Life. Before we drill into the detail of exactly what's been going on, some background context in relation to St James's Park. If you didn't know, there's been a feasibility study by the new owners of Newcastle United in relation to St James's Park, exploring the opportunities to increase the capacity, whether that's some sort of expansion to the current ground or redevelopment or even a rebuild, or possibly relocating St James's Park altogether. And that's important because there's a huge demand for tickets by Newcastle fans to get into our stadium, which currently has a capacity of just over 52,000, and there are thousands who would also like to get in. So an expansion of some sort of that capacity would be a huge benefit, certainly commercially to the club, because as you know, we are tightly regulated by financial fair play, or profitability and sustainability rules, which is hindering the growth of the club in relation to potentially buying new players. So if we can create more revenue, more commercial revenue, it's more money in the pot to buy players. So we're talking about this little area of land just behind me here. It's privately owned. Now this area as well is also part of the Leazes Conservation Area. And just to clarify where the boundary is, correct us if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the edge of that conservation boundary goes to the back end of the car parking bay where the low curb is. So I'm pretty sure that the conservation area doesn't include the parking areas which run alongside the back end of the east stand of St James's Park. So what exactly has the landowner been doing in recent weeks? Well, leading up to and including the Southampton game, earlier on in August, a huge yellow portable office cabin was plonked right on that land there, and it was taken down a few days later. And then leading up to the Spurs match, which was yesterday, there was a 3-foot perimeter parking fence placed around there, and it's been causing outrage and frustration with Newcastle United. And Newcastle United and the Newcastle United Supporters Trust have been in contact with the current landowner, St James's Terrace Land Limited, and the owner of these buildings as to what's going on, because it's causing all sorts of problems, not least safety issues when fans in their thousands are trying to get through turnstiles, etc. Now, sometime on Saturday, just gone a couple of days ago, the fencing was completely removed and there was absolutely nothing there for the Spurs game yesterday. And I've just arrived this morning, on Monday morning, and the fencing is back. The reasons behind that, I don't know. I don't know where they were stored, and I don't know why it's been put back there. It might be getting put back up. So who owns that little bit of parking land just over there? But before we get into that, we need to understand who owns St James's Terrace behind me there, numbers 1, 2, 3 and 4. And to do that, I'm going to remind you of an interview I held with a guy called Mumtaz in June 2023. Cash, I understand you own these buildings here behind us. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've come to own them and what perhaps their historical aspect is to the buildings?
Yeah, so I bought the buildings back in 2016. So there was an opportunity to acquire these buildings. I sort of looked at them and fell in love with them. You know, it's an interesting part of the city, especially with all of the development that's been happening at the former brewery site. So it appealed to me as a developer. It was a good long-term sort of opportunity to sort of take these beautiful buildings and convert them back into use. Previous usage, there were the ones on the corner were former council offices, and the one on the end, it was a sort of an osteopath's clinic. And you know, they were a bit sort of neglected, and I just fell in love with the buildings, and I thought this is a great opportunity.
So just to put a little bit more meat on the bone to that, in 2014 a company called Tinside Development Limited bought numbers 1, 2 and 3, and they converted those properties into residential flats, and it wasn't until 2016 when Cash come along, he bought the lot including number 4, which was an osteopath clinic, he said, and belonging to number 4 specifically is that small slither of land. And just for clarification, Cash Mumtaz is still the owner of numbers 1, 2, 3 and 4 St James's Terrace. He also owns number 15 and 17 round the corner on St James's Street. Now the land here, the parking land directly behind me, no longer belongs to Cash Mumtaz. He sold it on the 5th of April this year for £180,000, and it includes a little strip of land that goes down the alley there, and he sold it to a guy called Jules, and Robbie Calbray. He set up a company on the 28th of March, just a week before he bought it for £180,000, called St James's Terrace Land Limited. And you'll see on the sign at the back of the east stand over the turnstile there that Newcastle United categorically and make it clear that the land which has been causing some disruption belongs to St James's Terrace Land Limited. So Robbie Calbray has bought that land for £180,000 on the 5th of April this year, smack bang in the middle of a feasibility study being conducted by Newcastle United. Now I don't think it's unreasonable to speculate that with him being in the position that he's in the world he operates of freehold and leasehold and building operations, that whispers have got out in that world that the owners are planning to expand St James's Park, and he's been clearly highly motivated to buy the land from Cash Mumtaz and consequently now make myself a bit of a pain in the arse. So earlier on in August, 2 or 3 weeks ago, a huge yellow portable office cabin was plonked in that space there where the pallets are there now, clearly causing a lot of annoyance and frustration and disruption, especially on match day with Southampton because there are potential safety issues. Clearly the club weren't very happy at all. Now that cabin belongs to Nixon Hire. Nixon Hire have a depot in the west end of Newcastle just off Scotswood Road, directly opposite the Dunstan Stairs, and they deal in port cabin hire, portaloos, plant machinery and tool hire and the like. They also have a sponsorship arrangement with Newcastle United. Now, I'm not suggesting for a second they have any direct involvement in the antagonisation that's been going on, but they have a corporate box in there as well. Now, it's my understanding from the source I've been speaking to close to what's been going on is that Newcastle United had a conversation with Nixon Hire, suggested that container is moved ASAP or it could compromise their particular relationship. I did ring Nixon Hire this morning, spoke to a guy, introduced myself, told him the information I was seeking. He says, hold on, put me on to a lady called Jen, explained the same thing, and she said, oh, I don't know, I've just started working here, I don't know anything. So clearly they don't want to discuss what's been going on. She suggested that I email the club, but I'm not going to get any particular information. A few days after that, once the container had been moved, a fence, a small 3-foot fence was erected surrounding the parking bays, of course again causing a lot of annoyance and frustration and not least again potential safety issues if it was going to be there during the Spurs match. Now there were also signs on the particular fencing saying that CCTV, 24-hour CCTV was in operation with parking bay numbers, and interestingly St James's Terrace now has a camera CCTV pointing directly at the area that we're talking about, and I can say categorically that camera wasn't there on the 29th of May this year because I filmed the building for an unrelated video. That CCTV camera has only been put up very recently. Now whilst I've been filming here, I've observed a vehicle at the yard entrance at the back of number 4 St James's Terrace with a huge trailer, and the guy there's been unloading metal fencing into the back of the trailer and has just drove off. Is that the same metal fencing that was around the yellow office cabin container? I don't know. When this disappeared over the weekend, was it being stored at the back of number 4 St James's Terrace? I don't know. Or did he take it away in another vehicle and it's been brought back to be erected? I don't know. Clearly, I think this saga is going to continue. But in summary, Robert Calbray set up a company on the 28th of March this year called St James's Terrace Land Limited. 7 days later, he bought this land for £180,000 from Cash Mumtaz, who owns 1, 2, 3 and 4 St James's Terrace. Sometime after that, a CCTV camera has been put on the wall of number 3, and the rest is history in relation to the container being put up and then the fencing going up, taken down and then turning back up again. Clearly Newcastle United don't need this sort of aggravation and aggro. It's embarrassing for all concerned. It doesn't reflect well on the individual who's bought this land, who's deliberately antagonising the club out of greed to seize upon an opportunity to make a killing by selling this land to Newcastle United in his hope. So I hope you found this video informative. Let me know your thoughts down below, and if you'd like to see me do more investigations around Tinside, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you'll get a notification every time I release a new video.